Good afternoon, everyone. Hi again. All right. Well, we're going to continue with the program. We have a lot of great activities, for you this afternoon, especially in a few minutes, a big African luncheon. So if you liked the African breakfast, I hope you're not full. But as we sort of transition to our keynote speaker, we have an intermediary speaker. He is a professor here at UMass Boston. He's also at least a faculty affiliate with the Africa Scholars Forum. I'm going to introduce him, and he's going to come up and engage you with his presence and his scholarship and his work for about 20, 30 minutes. Hopefully he'll take questions from you. Bodunrin, and he calls himself Bo Banwo, is an assistant professor of educational leadership in the College of Education here at UMass Boston. He's also a committed Africa Scholars Forum faculty affiliate. Bo has spent over 2 decades working in youth and community development. Dr. Banwo completed his PhD at the University of Minnesota in educational policy and leadership. His research focus is on the liberatory effects of communication and communitarian programming in schools. Before beginning his PhD, Dr. Banwo served as a food access manager for the city of Baltimore, where he worked to improve the city's food supply chain and the economic viability of selling healthy food in Baltimore City. Throughout his career, Bodunrin has served as a public school teacher in Camden, New Jersey, a Peace Corps volunteer in Paraguay, South America, a food system manager for the Philadelphia-based nonprofit, the Food Trust, and Arizona public advocate and lobbyist for a Washington, D.C.-based nonprofit called Project Vote. Dr. Banwo's professional life has been dedicated to improving people's lives from the many social and ethnic diasporas scattered around the world, including the African diaspora, and he looks forward to working with individuals, groups, communities with a passion for continuing the work begun by our ancestors, according to him, to make our world a more merciful and just place. So I'm just honored and excited to welcome up Dr. Banwo, Bo, my friend. Thank you for doing this, and please come up to take the podium. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. Hello. Briefly, before I start, I just want to talk a little bit about my research and what I do. I'm going to talk about the remarks that I prepared. Is going to be on a little bit different, but my work is normally with African-centered schools and really starting to help members in the diaspora connect back to the continent in some way. So a lot of work around culture building, centering, decentering European culture, and start developing and start embracing cultures from the African continent. And so my remarks today is going to be about the importance of the connection between the African continent and members in the diaspora. So that's kind of what I do in real life. But my passion is really forming those bridges between us. I'm just going to start. Good day, good afternoon, Africa Scholars 2024. It's an honor to stand before you today to discuss a theme that resonates deeply, not only with Africa's past, but it's also its future. This year's theme, Africa in global governance, presents an opportunity for us to reflect on the critical role Africa must play in shaping global affairs. Today, I want to talk about the importance of African diasporic unity within the context, and why it's important more than ever for Africans, whether on the continent and the diaspora, to come together in solidarity to influence and transform global governance. Africa has long been seen as a continent rich in resources, but often sidelined in discussions that shape global governance structures. However, this narrative is rapidly changing. Africa is no longer on the periphery. It is increasingly taking center stage in global discussions about development, peace, security, and sustainability. But for Africa to realize its full potential and assert itself in global governance, the African diaspora must unite with the continent in purposeful and meaningful ways. One of the most pressing needs today is to strengthen the connection between diaspora and the continent. Historically, there's been physical, cultural, and political distance between Africa and its diasporic family. Although the ties of shared history and identity has always existed, the practical linkages that could elevate the African continent and empower its people on the global stage has been lacking. The unity of Africa's people, regardless of where they are located, is essential in reversing this gap and ensure that Africa's voices is truly heard in global governance. The African diaspora spans the globe, representing millions of African descendants who have been shaped by diverse experiences, from the legacies of slavery and colonialism to voluntary migration to modern-day economic and educational exchanges. The African diaspora is integral to the continent's future, and yet, despite the vast differences in geography, culture, and experiences, there remains a shared history and collective identity that unites us. Unity within the African diaspora is not a luxury, it is a necessity. And as a brief aside, we can really see in the past week how important this unity is to African peoples. Things can change very fast, very rapidly. And having family or having diasporic members in countries to assist us with this rapid change is critical. It is a tool that can propel Africa into the future, transforming global governance structures and creating a more equitable world for all. The forces of colonialism and the transatlantic slave trade left deep scars on Africa, and for this history of trauma, resiliency was born. We now have an opportunity to take that resilience and turn it into strength. Advocating for a kind of global governance that serves the needs of all Africans, no matter where they live. This shared history, marked by resilience to opposition, to oppression, and drive for freedom, forms the foundation of African diasporic unity. From the civil rights movement in the United States to the Pan-African movement that spans the globe, Africans in the diaspora has always played a critical role in advancing the cause of justice and freedom. The diaspora was not a passive witness to the struggles in Africa, but an active participant whose efforts and ideas fueled the larger struggle for independence and human rights. Today, the African diaspora's involvement in global governance is just as critical. Africa's voice must not be an isolated one, as African nations increasingly take their rightful place in international organizations like the United Nations, the African Union, and regional economic communities. The diaspora can provide an invaluable support by offering resources, expertise, and networks that can amplify Africans' influence. The diaspora is not a distant observer, it is a partner in Africa's global vision. There is also tremendous cultural exchange that strengthens this unity. Africa diaspora communities are not only bearers of African heritage, they are also creators of new forms of culture that contribute to the global dialogues, from jazz to hip hop, reggae to Afrobeats. African culture has a transformative influence on global music, art, and literature. When we unite, we can help the world better understand the depths and richness of our cultures, which in turn gives Africa greater cultural capital and global awareness. However, this cultural exchange is not just about pride. It also serves as a bridge for meaningful political and economic cooperation. The African diaspora is uniquely positioned to support Africa's economic development, whether through investments, trade, or transfer of knowledge and technology. The diaspora can foster strong links between Africa and the wider world. The African Continental Free Trade Area is a prime example of how African nations can work together to improve trade and economic cooperation, and the diaspora can play a critical role in facilitating this progress. The diaspora can also serve as an advocate for Africa in international governance forums, making a case for Africa's inclusion and leadership on the global stage. The African diaspora voice can help challenge long-standing power dynamics in global governance system, from financial institutions like the World Bank and IMF to organizations like the United Nations and the World Trade Organization. These institutions have historically marginalized African interests, but through unity, the diaspora can work alongside African governments to determine changes that reflects Africa's real power and potential in global affairs. But for this unity to be effective, we must confront and dismantle barriers that continue to divide us. Africa, both on the continent and in the diaspora, has long faced challenges like systemic racism, inequality, and underrepresentation in global governance structures. Whether it's a form of discriminatory immigration policies, lack of representation in global decision-making bodies, or economic disparities, these barriers weaken our collective voices. Through unity, we can amplify our strengths and advocate for social justice and equitable representation Africa deserves. The fight for Africa's place in global governance is inherently tied to the struggle against racism and inequality. Today, organizations like Black Lives Matter movement, in SARS protests, and advocacy for migrant rights highlight the ongoing battle we face. But these movements also reveals a growing sense of solidarity and determination among African descendant people globally. These movements do not just challenge racism, they challenge global governance structures that perpetrate injustice and inequality. It is within this context that African diasporic unity can serve as a transformative force. If we come together, if we unite across nations, cultures, and political boundaries, we can build a collective power that reshapes the future of global governance. Together, we can advocate for reforms that benefit not just Africa, but all marginalized communities worldwide. The unity of the African diaspora is essential in pushing for global policies that prioritize equity, justice, sustainability for all peoples. In this moment, when Africa is poised to have greater influence on the global stage, it is critical that we do not leave the diaspora behind. Africa's global governance agenda is incomplete without full involvement of its diaspora. Through strategic partnerships, economic cooperation, and cultural solidarity, we can ensure that Africa's future is shaped by a united and empowered people, both on the continent and in the diaspora. Finally, as we look into the future, we must remember that unity is not just about collective action today. It is also about empowering the next generation. The youth on the the youth in the African diaspora are leaders of tomorrow. They must understand that they are part of a global community with rich, interconnected history and responsibility to shape the future. Through education, mentorship, cross-cultural exchanges, we can equip young people with the tools they need to drive change, not just in their local communities, but on the global stage as well. As we continue to strengthen our ties, we must remind ourselves that unity is not just an ideal. It is a practical, powerful force. The future of Africa's place in global governance depends on our ability to stand together. When we do, we send a message to the world that Africa's time is now, and that together we will shape the world's future for the better. Thank you. I think, take some questions, sure. I'm sorry, I hope y'all didn't think I was getting a little too preachy. I think Dr. Kamara got a question back there.
Oh. Thank you very much, Bo, for your comments. I think you were certainly right on point in talking about the necessity to strengthen the linkages between the diaspora and the continent. I'd like to, if we could, in this conversation among us here, to refocus a bit your comments to the question of praxis and how we might begin to apply that, the set of principles that you talked about and the potential for empowerment in building this bridge internationally, and begin with our campus. Mm-hmm. And how we begin to actualize the formation and the strengthening of the network building process right here. I mean, the students who are graduating from many of our programs here are going to go home to Africa and become leaders. Yeah. In both the governmental and non-governmental sectors. Mm-hmm. But to what degree have solid, concrete networks been built here with the diaspora that remains here? Mm-hmm. And how could we begin to really think about from this year, from the fall semester at UMass Boston, being sure that when Africa Day is celebrated next year, this room is full. Mm-hmm. And that there are students from the Caribbean, there's students from Brooklyn, there's students from Dorchester, right here with us in this conversation. I mean, this is where we have to begin to actualize the meaning of that. At UMass Boston, we have already established, we have a formal MOU with a university in Africa, in West Africa. Based in Benin, that grew out of work we've done in Africana studies. But a major impediment to expanding that has been the lack of an endowed base to help facilitate transportation back and forth. Yes, we can use our technology, but that's not the same form of engagement. How do we begin to establish pools of resources that can allow the students here to begin to exchange with one another and strengthen those networks? I'd like us to, if we could, just share some ideas around concretizing that right here where we are.
Mm-hmm. I'll go first. For me, I think, I agree with you. I think probably one of the most troubling things that I've noticed in recent years, really online, is this sort of divide that is being put between people. It's not even just people from the continent in the United States, it's like all African peoples. It's like this bizarre thing where we're seeing ourselves as something else, and not as people with a historic history on the continent. And I think, for me, I think that's where we have to start, is really starting getting people to recognize ourselves as a group of people, as a people. Or, you know, I always got friends that say Africa is, you know, many countries, many groups of people, but us seeing ourselves as brothers and sisters. And I think for me, that's where we're gonna have to start on this campus, is really starting to bring people together again. That's my idea. What some other people in the room, what do y'all think? We got a person back here. There's a person right here.
Oh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victory. I'm a nursing student, and I'm an African. I think there's a disconnect between the African diaspora and Africans on campus because there's not connection with the African club. So we have an African club on campus, and it contains a lot of different varieties, like and different people. I think for next year's event, it would be a good idea to connect with that club because they do have more outreach on social media. They do dances on TikTok to kind of bring events, bring people, and bring awareness to things that we do over there. I'm part of the club over there as well. And they just have I want to say, better outreach. I do understand that we put posters on campus, but most times people don't look at posters. I think having a greater online or social media outreach is a good idea to draw people in because I do think it's a great event. I have been here every year since I became a student here, and I think it's a good idea to connect with that club or other clubs. There's Haitian club, there's Caribbean club, there's different clubs on campus, and they each have their own individual influence over people that they connect with, so I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Anybody else? Anyone else ideas about how we can sort of facilitate more unity amongst African peoples?
Hi, I'm Diallo Ferguson. I'm with Urban Education, Leadership, and Policy Studies. First, I want to say thank you to those of you who've already spoken. I think you have some brilliant ideas. I think one thing that we possibly could do is to contact some of those different communities, like the Haitian students, different people from the Caribbean, and have some type of cultural extravaganza where you get to showcase your culture. So we could have this room and it can be filled with people representing different parts of the diaspora all together at one. And then, at that place, that's an opportunity for us to talk about some of these issues that we're facing and how we can make those connections and create something that's ongoing and unifying.
Mm-hmm. Almost something low stakes, just an event. I said almost something low stakes, just an event where we are meeting each other.
Right, just as a starting point,
Mm-hmm.
definitely.
Right here.
I'll let you.
Hello, my name is Oluchi, and I believe the young lady there had an excellent idea in addition to his as well, but I was even going to ask a question about the youths, when we're talking about the diaspora, stepping it down a little bit more, because we know the population of African youths, it's, I think, the highest in the globally,
Yes.
And it's good to have a niche for them. And while we are talking, and I was also thinking, okay, what other ways? And I thought about having an exchange program. UMass can, have an exchange program with maybe an institution or institutions in in some specific countries, targeted specific countries, or for specific courses that has to build. Like we have an Africana Studies department here. You can have like an exchange program with some schools, like say in Nigeria or any other country, where students can come from there for a while. And I mean, we all know what exchange program is. So I think that's something to consider as well, in addition to other measures.
Yeah, I just want to say something quick about the youth. I cannot overemphasize how important the young population is on the African continent. It is what everyone's looking at. And like you said, Africa has the youngest population globally. So the future is there. And our engagement with the youth on the African continent is critically important, because industry, resources is going to be targeted towards the African continent, because that's where the population is going to be in the future. And that has a lot of implications globally, and it's something that is that everyone's talking about. Everyone, all industries, all professions, everyone's talking about the youth population in the continent of Africa. Because if you look at Europe, you look at the United States, what are they looking for? Young people. And Africa has those young people. So please think about that as you are thinking about what you're going to do in the future and how you're going to engage young people. So thank you for that. We got a comment over here.
Good afternoon. My name is Sister Kadrian, and I'm a graduate of UMass Boston, Africana Studies. And I'm the founder of the Vesta Road Community Revitalization Block Party. Last year, we celebrated our 9th annual block party to combat the violence in the inner city of Boston. And it was successful. It would be wonderful if we could have some individuals come to speak at this year's block party, our 10th annual block party.
When is it?
Vesta Road in Dorchester.
No, when is it?
We haven't set the date yet, but it's usually the end of July, beginning of August.
Gotcha.
So that would be wonderful.
Okay. You ready? I think we're going to. All right, thank you, everybody.